Do we lose Amy? All right, we're going to Freeman in Calgary.
Good morning, Jeremy and Henrik. Thanks so much, you guys. I really appreciate this. Has been an amazing almost hour now. I had a couple of questions for you guys. I'm currently working with a company. We're kind of pushing what we call human-centered innovation management and kind of making innovation kind of a core concept in businesses and stuff. But I'm curious from like your guys' perspective, what is really the way that like companies can measure their innovation to make sure that they're actually getting a return on what they're doing with their innovation? And secondly, would be how can people inside of an organization kind of help them, their maybe like the leadership in that organization, understand that innovation is a useful part of the thing and not just a fun kind of side project to have on the side, but how can they kind of champion and show that innovation is a useful part of an organization?
I'll give a simple measure and then pass it to Henrik. A simple measure, Freeman, is how many things are you killing? And you should have a minimum kill threshold. If you're pursuing innovation, it's a low probability endeavor, which means most things you do won't work. If most of your innovation projects are successful, it means you aren't innovating. If you don't kill most of the things that you're trying, it means you are exploring broadly enough. And so for me, one of the most important things to be measuring is how much stuff are we pruning every year and saying we can't do that anymore. We don't have resources for that anymore. And for most people, they're looking at like they want a 95% kind of utilization or something. That's just not how innovation works. And so kind of flipping, I've got a friend who runs an innovation program at a, enormous conglomerate. In his division, he has a minimum failure threshold. And so what he says is if at least 60% of the stuff we're doing, we aren't killing year over year, I know we aren't exploring broadly enough. And I declare my unit to be a failure. And part of his evaluation incentives and things like that are actually if he hits that minimum failure threshold. But anyway, I'm curious, Henrik, what do you think?
Yeah, I had two other observations that might be useful. One is when we did all this incubation, we had this kind of internal phrase called innovation as a product you can ship. And one of the things that I don't think most companies do is to think about what is the object for taking the learnings and then making sure that they get shipped around the organization. And because a lot of time we use the failed kind of innovation efforts, we justify them with the learning. Meanwhile, I see almost no two-pager white papers that explain almost like a scientific protocol of what we tried and what worked and what didn't work in a form where it makes it very easy for the organization to consume it. And so I think in general, we should be much better of shipping the knowledge and the insights for these innovation. The other thing I would say is I very much share your pain in how do we make sure this doesn't become kind of the side circus. I mean, the amount of time I've sat in organizations and you see a company that's basically is fading. And meanwhile, they still kind of like, it's not really focused on figuring out what the future should be. I don't have an answer for you, but I will say, I do think that if you have raised your hand to try to do that work, then you're doing incredible work and that it's part of your job to take that anxiety and that fatigue on your shoulder, because otherwise it's just doomed. Like the default member in the organization is just not going to do what you guys are doing. And so I guess this would just be a little bit of like, even though it's unfair and even though it's kind of like annoying and even though nobody like pays attention and you get sent in front of the CEO and you get 15 minutes at the end of the meeting to do this thing that might be the future. I think it's important that somebody choose to do it, because otherwise we know that statistically it's just going to have a rapid regression to the mean. And so I guess this is a little bit of a military hoo-ha for people who kind of take on that job in the organization.